Hello and welcome to Podcasting as Praxis, where we are committing more self-harm and engaging in Scottish politics.
It's going to be fun.
It's not.
Well, not with that attitude, David, it won't.
Not with any attitude, come on. Right, so I'm here with, as you can hear, Elijah is joining us again. And I'm also here with Jamie and James.
Hello. Can I just say it's too fucking warm, and I now appreciate why we hold our elections in May, is so that all the Scots don't fucking melt on the way to the polls like 99 pence flakes.
Actually, I think you'll find that a lot of them did melt on the way to the polls.
Right, joke of the show.
Imagine just a fucking queue of people with their taps off in the polling office. That's not a pretty smell to imagine.
No, it's really not. Jesus Christ. So...
little barbecue smoke wafting off him. Right. What's happened since the last time?
Very little has changed. Very fucking little at all. The SNP have gained, 2 seats or some shit?
Yeah,
One
something
seat.
like that.
Yeah, not much. They gained a couple of seats, they lost a couple of seats all through the joys of the hunt system, and effectively they came just shy of a majority by the 1 seat that they would have needed, which is, good job on the both votes, the SNP there. Well done. Yeah.
Overall, You want to talk about the both votes SNP thing a little bit? Because, there's a couple of things to say, I guess.
So we covered this the last time we talked Scottish politics, and the system is actively worked in such a way that isn't supposed to work. Like, you're not supposed to be able to absolutely brute force the electoral system. But, they managed to get a majority once, and they seem to think that this is the way to do it. It's largely a ploy to stop having to work with other parties like the Greens, although we'll come on to why they're doing that for them anyway soon.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
There's one part of me that's like, well, if people want to vote for a specific party because they like that party, then yeah, sure, go put both your votes in SNP. Don't worry about all the weird mathematical things going on in the electoral system. If the SNP wasn't such a large hegemonic force, it would be working out more naturally anyway. The only reason why both votes SNP is this weird sort of, kind of calculus thing that people are getting really mad about is because of this, very, very unusual political situation, right? Like normally I don't think it's a bad idea to begrudge people putting both votes to a party that they like. Like, vote who you like for, basically, right? That's kind of a general sort of decent principle. That being said, there's a number of tactical points you can then come at it. Tactical voting we have in first past the post as well, and it's just one of those things that doesn't really seem to work, right? Like all the people who were saying, I'm in the UK general elections, I'm going to tactically vote for like a non-Brexit party like the Lib Dems or the Greens, right? You can't tactically vote your way into a hung parliament. You can't tactically vote your way into like a one single issue. You have to engage with a wider contextualized political reality. Yeah. So if people want to do both votes SNP, sure, and then sometimes the SNP gets a couple extra list seats. And then sometimes something really funny happens and they get a constituency seat they weren't expecting, and then a certain obnoxious MSP loses out on her list seat.
Yes,
it's funny how that happens.
Good. Yeah.
Should we maybe, to the benefit of people who aren't living in Scotland and don't know, should I just explain what the change in vote share is across the constituency in the region for everyone?
Yes, tell Jamie.
Okay. All right. So everyone, by which I mean Jamie. So you've got your constituency seats and you've got your regional seats, right? So here's the change from last election, okay, in percentage terms. The SNP gained 1.2%. The Conservatives lost 0.1%. Labour lost 1%. The Lib Dems lost 0.9%. The Greens gained 0.7% on the constituencies. So you may think, okay, well, that's a constituency, maybe the regional list vote, maybe that is where the real change is. So let's go. The SNP lost 1.4%. The Conservatives gained 0.6%. Labour lost 1.2%. The Greens gained 1.5%. Lib Dems lost 0.1%. And Alba gained 1.7%. Nothing changed this election. All of that, it could basically be statistical jitter, frankly, for the degree of change that's taken place.
Except that 1% that Labour lost, because that's very important to note that Labour's vote share went down. Very important to note that.
But
well, I mean, by the same margin, you can sort of go, oh, well, that 1.5% that the Green gained was really important as well. But it's like, was it really? In the ultimate sense?
I mean, that's the reality of things now. No,
that translated to a few extra seats, though.
Yeah, but not by much. By the way, they added 2. Greens added 2 seats.
Okay, but 2 seats for 1% of vote change, I don't think is much to thumb your nose at. You know, like if you're working in margins this fine.
When we get on to talking about what the results mean for each party, I can go into my position on it in a little more depth with all the appropriate disclaimers. But I think, just to kind of give the survey right, constituency SNP are on 47.7%. Region, they're on 40.3%, and that's pretty close to what they were last time round. And all the rest is just shuffling deck chairs, let's be real.
Yeah, big picture, it's all the same stuff. The islands kind of go Lib Dem, the borders goes Tory. We have this big mess in Aberdeenshire that just keeps going Tory because it's where all the wealthy former offshore people live. And then you have a couple of little pockets here and there, but the whole rest of the country is yellow.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's all the same narratives. Nothing's really been an upheaval in terms of
hang on a second.
Areas.
Elijah, are you saying that the question still hasn't been answered?
I'm saying that a year of everything being put on hold because of a global pandemic might not lead to that much change. Are
you saying that something is fundamentally impactful on everybody's life still managed to fail at changing anything in Scotland? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm saying...
Sounds like that's the result of it. All I mean is that you can't change Scottish politics because the question hasn't been answered satisfactorily yet.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's a big polarizing issue. It's the one big issue that we try not to talk about because there's no real scope for it to be answered. But what I find interesting is that within the sort of opposition parties, who I've come to see as just this like large sort of frothing morass of just oppositionness, right? Like they Anna Sarwar was touted as this, like charismatic new face, and he was all over the press, and he was, looking quite sparkly, and people were talking him up. And I saw people who really should know better kind of get swept up. Oh, I think he'll do better than Labour did last time. And no, like absolutely not. There's a lot of reasons for this situation that you could point at. Most of it down to perception. In the details.
The fact that people had actually seen a Scottish Labour leader for the first time in 4 years or whatever. Yeah. Because they're actually letting this one out.
Yeah, I mean,
let's be real. Yeah. Let's be real. Anna Sarwar's net effect, as best we can tell, is East Lothian went Labour to SNP, and then they lost percentages on the regional vote. That's it.
In material terms, it was a failure.
I will this taken away from Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer did that, not Anna Sarwar.
I mean, that might be a joke, but it's also probably true. I don't know if Anna Sarwar was skilled as a politician.
As with everything I say about Labour, that's partly a joke and partly actually the fact of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think Keir Starmer doesn't really talk about Scottish issues much at all, except for the usual, like standard sort of unionist line that he trots out. He hasn't taken a special interest. He's just kind of ignored it. But I think his failure as a party leader is so immense so overwhelming, so universally applicable that it has managed to spill forth, right? And I think even just subconsciously, people are like a little bit more grossed out by Labour than they might have been before, even after Jim Murphy and everything. Like,
the man is a multi-spectral fuck up.
That's all going to change tonight, though, isn't it? Once he's done once everyone sees the actual like bloke underneath the headlines or whatever.
Is that tonight?
His interview tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, that's tonight. Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing here?
This is being recorded in a pre-Piers Morgan Keir Starmer interview world. Like, ooh, let's see what happens on the other side of that. Nothing. Who
was it was tweeting today that they'd seen it and it like revealed the man, or more accurately, the bloke?
Was it Gabriel fucking Pogrund or something?
You can say many things about Keir Starmer, but you can't in good conscience. There's many slurs you can use against Keir Starmer that sort of fit, but in good conscience, you can never call him a bloke. That's just not him.
Well, I mean, you tell that to Patrick Maguire, who for some reason did.
Oh, Jesus. It's going to be... If he does that fucking fake, pretendy, frothy coffee fucking bullshit, it's going to be really, really funny.
Please.
I'll tell you why, because his voice and his mannerisms are just so unable to connect with that. He looks much more like a robot than, was it Owen Smith? Was that his name?
Yes, he's the frothy coffee guy.
Yeah, the frothy coffee guy with the huge penis.
Yeah, who beat off 100 men.
Yeah.
The master debater.
Keith's not a bloke, and like, and the thing is, like, bloke's not really a compliment. Like, fucking, I mean, if you met blokes, do you know what a bloke said to me once?
Yeah, right.
You get a better class of fanny at the airport industrial estate. That's a thing I actually heard come out of a man's mouth.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Jesus.
So, for all Keith's faults, I doubt he goes around saying that to people. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I bet he stammers out.
I've just imagined his thought process behind that statement, and I'm.
Can I just genuinely ask, would you like Starmer more or less if he said that?
It would honestly be as fucking inexplicable as anything else he's done to try and like fucking curry the favour of the masses, wouldn't it?
I suppose it would.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, this is an interesting question. We've never really thought about this. What effect has Keir Starmer had on Scottish politics? And I guess we never really had scope for analysis. But the election results are as good as any. What did Labour do? They had a brand spanking, shiny, sparkly guy who was getting a lot of media attention, a lot of positive, sort of pumping up. And he, like, overall, he's lost, right? Like, overall, Labour, That's got to be Keith, right? Like,
I mean, as a microcosm, Anas Sarwar is very much the well-polished, yet no one cares version of Keir Starmer.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, there's nothing to him, but everyone knows there's nothing to him anyway, so it's like, really, why bother that hard? And you've got to remember, like, the whole one question thing does overshadow, like, what people will vote for. Some people are so hard opposed to the idea of independence, yet, cannot bring themselves to vote Tory. They will happily just vote for, a shit Labour Party because fuck it.
It sounded like you said that. Sorry, it sounded like you said there that Anas Sarwar was a more competent politician than Keir Starmer.
I said more polished, not more competent.
Okay. Well, that would make him better at the job in some regard.
No, no, more polished in an aesthetic sense. That's it. Like, I can see Keir Starmer.
Oh, he's got a sweat your face.
I can see him giving it the Ed Miliband "I'm tussing us" like thing, but I can't see Anas Sarwar fucking that up. Or if he did, again, no one would care.
Yeah, Anas Sarwar is basically Keir Starmer with a better quality of briefcase. I think that's the way to describe it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the little rotating number lock on it. Yeah.
That's kind of him, basically.
Yeah. All right. The code is 1997. So we'll go into each party and what they've kind of done and where they lie now. So we'll start from the top, results wise anyway. So the SNP, they are slightly closer, yet still impossibly far away from being able to take power with the majority government.
They were one seat short, I think, yeah.
One seat short.
One seat short.
Which is, to be honest, the funniest result that they could have possibly ended up at. So, like, fair play. So close, yet no.
So we like both votes SNP then?
I mean, as someone who doesn't like the SNP, I love both votes SNP. I think it's great. So, I mean, yeah, nothing's really changed there. Nicola Sturgeon's the First Minister. There's been a bit of a reshuffle within the cabinet.
Which I have thoughts on, but we'll probably talk about that
we'll
when we come
talk
to talk
about the
Greens.
reshuffle. Yeah, we'll talk about the reshuffle down the line, I think. Yeah, we'll save that to the end. Again, yeah, nothing's really changed there. The Tories are at second place overall, I think, seats-wise. Yes, 31 seats. Who cares? They lost a seat that they'd been holding in Ayrshire, which was, Ayr, I think, actually was the constituency. They lost that seat to the SNP by like 100-odd votes. Get fucked. Really weird, of all places, for Ayr.
Yeah. I enjoyed the clip today of Douglas Ross saying, you wouldn't get this on the BBC, and there's like a huge BBC logo right in the corner next to his head. I don't know what he was talking about. I just thought that was funny.
Oh, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't.
Important to note, there's no such thing as an official opposition in the Scottish Parliament. So Willie Rennie, fuck's sake, I just looked at the Liberal Democrats there. We'll go on to them in a bit. So Douglas Ross doesn't actually have like an official title or anything like that. He just happens to be the guy in charge of the biggest party, second only the SNP, but it means fuck all. Again, nothing has changed except he now has a seat. And I think he's still got his Westminster seat as well. He hasn't given that up yet.
Two-timing son of a gun. I mean, you know.
I personally love to show the worth of my job by having two of them at the same time.
It was bad
This
enough.
always lets the bosses and the people who put me in that job know that I'm working very, very hard in both of them.
He's the referee, right? I have to double check because I keep getting Douglas Ross mixed up with like two other like gormless Scottish Tories. Yeah, that was already. That was already kind of weird. You're like, really? You're gonna fuck off Parliament to go play a Champions League game? Okay, cool. Why are you in politics? Like,
we know why he's in politics. It's to genocide travellers.
Yeah, that's
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care about him anymore. I don't have to. It's good. He's just there looking weird.
Yeah. The only good thing that the Tories did was fuck the SNP out of that turf seat. Who was it again?
Joan McAlpine lost because the SNP won a constituency seat in, was it Dumbartonshire?
No, I think it was Ayr.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Ayr.
Oh, was it Ayr?
Yeah, it was the Ayr seat, yeah. So they lost Ayr. Because of that, the arithmetic changed and it fucked her out of her seat, which is hilarious. So
Very
because
funny,
the Tories got owned, a turf in the SNP got owned.
Yep.
So like
Double
everyone
whammy.
good wins out of that one. Yeah. That's just funny as fuck. Labour, again, slight downturn in both the constituency and regional share. Nothing's really changed. Again, no one cares what Scottish Labour thinks because they don't outwardly think anything. I think the only thing I've heard out of them, like before, during and after, has been the words COVID recovery plan. I still don't know what the COVID recovery plan is.
No. Well, they don't have one. It's the usual get on with the day job shite. Which might work, but only if you can actually pinpoint to things in the day job that you'd be better at doing. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, it's the usual. It's the return to Labour wants things to happen. What would you like to happen? That's not our job. You tell us. obviously not to the electorate, but to the SNP, because they would never ask the electorate what was wanted. Fuck that. It's not what the Labour Party's for, asking people what they would like. The Lib Dems, Willie Rennie,
they fucked it
the
so
Lib
hard.
Dems are technically not actually a party anymore.
Yeah, this is my favourite thing, I think, of the whole election. This is probably the funniest thing that happened, was they dropped below 5 seats.
Yeah, you need
Which
5
is the
seats to be
threshold.
recognised. Yeah, you need 5 seats to be recognised as an actual party by the Scottish Parliament. So for the purposes of like offices, staff, all that kind of shit. So because they lost the seat, they have lost their status as a party, which is just deeply funny. So now you just need to imagine Willie Rennie doing 6 jobs at once.
Kind of like it's also important to bear in mind that has financial implications for them.
Yes.
It's really funny. I've heard a rumour that the knives are out for Willie Rennie. I don't know how true or not that is, but all I can
From
think of is
who?
if the knives really are out for Willie Rennie off the back of this, surely to God the best way to do it would just be to plant one at the bottom of a slide and let nature take its course.
Who's holding the fucking knife? Who else is there? Who do we know in the... There's Alex Cole Hamilton?
For all I know, it could be a sacrificial knife from the Islanders who are
Yeah, maybe.
displeased with the old oath not being upheld. I don't know, right?
I
But
can think
that's,
of...
that's the rumour I've heard.
I can think of
Maybe
the names
he's
of
gonna,
two... Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say maybe he's going to do a photo shoot where he dresses as a squirrel and then like just get his head blown off.
He later apologises to Joe Swinson after she shoots him in the face.
Yeah, like there's only 2 other like active Scottish Lib Dems who I can think of by name, and that's Alex Cole Hamilton and Alistair Carmichael. Is Carmichael still the MP for was it Shetland?
I think he is, yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
Possibly.
like they don't do anything. They're
Well,
just
no, I mean,
kind of
the Lib
shitty on
Dems
Twitter.
and they're from Shetland.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even if they were to do something, hardly anyone from down this way or down in Westminster especially would actually care what they had to say. So yeah, like it doesn't really matter if he's still the MP or not. Like,
No, I meant the
don't
Lib
know.
Dems
I
in
mean,
general. They don't do like who's got the knives
Well-
out for Willie Rennie? Who like is there any other prominent figure? I'm putting way too much thought into this. Move on.
I genuinely don't know. Like it's one of those ones where like who would actually wish harm on Willie Rennie? It's like fucking stabbing an Ewok. Like what's he do? He's doing no one any harm. He's just there.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's doing the Lib Dems harm. They've had a decline under him, so...
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Like-
I repeat, he's doing no one any harm.
I mean, yes, we might think that, but if you're a Lib Dem who's used to being treated as like part of a serious party for real grown-ups, and suddenly you have to go with being just like, oh, you're that group of independent MSPs in the chamber, right?
Yeah.
Then that's got to sting a bit, surely.
I just hope they start getting excluded from debates going forward. That would be the funniest thing.
Like, they won't be excluded from debates exactly, but they certainly won't get as much prominence in them as well, which is really, really funny. Though there's more discussion to happen on the subject of debates, ironically enough. I swear to God, I didn't laugh this, but most of the interesting stuff in this election relates to the Scottish Greens, which is a weird situation to be in.
No, we have there's a few things to talk about there. Right.
Yeah.
So Lib Dems.
Before we move on, just with the Lib
Yeah.
Dems, I've just now got an image of like a really dark room, and just a phone being put down after the words "do it," and then Lembit Opic looks up from a desk over his glasses, like just vibes. Yeah. Okay. So next one, the Greens.
Well, no. Let's leave the Greens because there's a lot of conversation there. Let's do Alba.
Oh yeah, I forgot about them because they're not on the list I'm looking at.
No, they're not. They don't appear to have any seats. It's very bizarre.
No, weird. How strange.
I thought they were
Yeah.
going to be a huge shake-up in the whole voting system and force independence through on the.
Well, judging by Alex Salmon's face on the night of the count and the day of the count, he also thought that, and he thought wrong.
Judging by his face, there was a huge shake-up because he looked like he had a fucking stroke on the way out. The guy got
Basically.
fucking done. Yeah, like, well, fuck him. Terf's gonna get fucked. Good.
Yeah.
But yeah, just from the get-go, like, the whole thing was an absolute farce. Like, I watched the live stream when they announced the thing, or at least I watched the interviews, or the interview questions with Salmond after it, and it was the most technically fucked up stream I have ever seen. Like we have managed a better stream than they did, and we've done one stream. It was just so fucking bad. The whole thing was just an absolute metaphor for their own management.
It's because we don't fall asleep and try to cuddle the cameras.
Can I just say for a record, there is something quite illuminating when you put it in context, because in that stream, right, first questioner was the Reverend Stuart Campbell from Wings Over Scotland down in Bath. And after Alba failed, Wings Over Scotland has been suspended. He's put the project on hold and is basically, throwing in the towel. And he's going to review in December, I think. So,
I mean, he claimed that, but he just put out an article about how ref.scot was a scam with the donations. He's clearly not planning on giving up the gravy train anytime soon.
God, nothing good can come from a Scottish election, can it?
Well, we don't have to care about him that much anymore because his chosen political vehicle has been thoroughly discredited. I mean, this was one of the questions I was thinking about. So first I wanted to look at the numbers a little bit because I don't think Alba even managed to have a negative impact in the sense that I don't think they drew away enough list voters to cost anyone else's seat. Am I right in thinking that?
No. It's kind of hard to say outright.
It's hard to say, but if there's no like
it
glaring
looks along
example,
those lines, yeah.
I mean, it looks like, okay, so they got 1.7% on the list. The SNP are down 1.4%. Maybe, I looked at the numbers and it didn't look like they had, but maybe you could construe that the 1.4% SNP lost went to Alba. But if it did, I don't think it actually cost the SNP any, regional list seats.
No, so I don't think so. You'd have to look at the numbers on a per seat basis, and I think someone has done that. And there's just nothing there. Like you don't have a big chunk that if you stacked it on top of the SNP would get them into a seat. It's just
see that's the thing. If you add the Alba vote to the SNP vote in every region, and listener, if we're wrong about this, do flag it up to us, and we'll issue a correction the next time we do a ScotPol episode in 5 years. I don't think it makes any mechanical difference whatsoever. So effectively, Alba bled the SNP vote in regions where it didn't matter, and by an almighty 1.4%, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then where they got the other 0.3%, some of it they'll have got from, I'm guessing from Labour. Just looking at the percentage changes, it has to have come from Labour, because they're down 1.2 overall.
Possibly, we can't discount it was non-voters, historically, who've come out just because finally the TERF party was here or whatever.
Maybe, but I'm very sceptical.
Because I think a lot of the lost Labour vote isn't going to vote for the Alba party of all fucking parties. Like, I think, if anything, the Labour Party has already bled its pro-independent share. There's nothing left for that to drop. The reason that's down 1.2% out in the regional vote and 1% in the constituency is Keir Starmer, and the fact that the Labour Party is no longer a left-wing party, and it's measurable as such now.
Do you think they just fucked off?
I didn't vote for them this time. I voted for them in fucking 2017 and 2019. I didn't vote for them this time.
Let me actually see, because what is the turnout?
Turnout was the highest ever turnout, 63.2%.
Okay, so turnout is up.
Yes.
So turnout up means some non-voters came back to vote for something. Do you think there's Labour people who left Labour who think Anna Sarwar is a snowflake?
It's more likely to be people in my situation who were voting Labour begrudgingly in Scotland while Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the opposition until he no longer was, and then we've just abandoned the party. I think that's probably going to be your biggest contingent of why they've lost votes. I don't think they're going to pull many extra people in.
No, I'm looking at the hypothetical Labour to Alba switcher.
Yeah, it's okay, if we're up in vote share, then fair enough. Maybe it just is a case that the 0.3% that we're missing from the SNP vote came from disaffected voters piling in, essentially.
Maybe.
It's impossible. I mean, I'd really like to see some good polling on this, to be totally honest. Like, who did you vote last time? Who did you vote this time?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there hasn't been any particularly great polling on this, so it's a shame. But
oh well, never mind. It's not as if the Alba Party is going to be there next time round.
No, it's not. They're gone. We have 5 parties in Scotland. That's just how it works now.
Yes, and on that note, let's get to the 5th party, the Greens.
Well, okay. 1 second. there was a question I put in when we were discussing a potential stream before, which is, will Alba take the turfs with them? Will they jump to another vehicle?
No, they will not, because Joanna Cherry is still an MP.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. But like, small things are changing. She has resigned from the NEC. One of my questions was, will the SNP finally pass the GRA reform under the auspices of anti-GRA being incorporated in Alba as an electoral vehicle, and that failing abysmally? Could it be seen as politically safe?
No, I don't think it would have a material effect, because I do think that they would have passed it anyway. I don't think it was eventually going to be passed. The SNP have a thing where they drag an actual good progressive thing out for as long as they possibly fucking can before they're finally forced to do it by just the sheer weight of the momentum of not doing it. Like the existence of Alba and the failure of Alba will not pressure them in any way, shape or form to do this more or less. And like the TERF contingent is still alive and strong in the SNP. Like, just because Joanna Cherry has resigned from the NEC, not been forced out of the NEC, resigned from the NEC, like, it doesn't mean that the SNP are actually taking any positive steps towards this. Like, there was a thing in the run up to the election where Nicola Sturgeon made a big point of saying to Johnson, ban conversion therapy or I will, and it's like, just fucking do it. What's stopping you?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? That's bullshit. That's if you want to make active change, if you want to do the thing that forces change down south, like, maybe take it from your whole pro-independence route, where you say, actually, we'll be the progressive example setting ones and they'll need to follow suit. Maybe just do it rather than letting people have to go through conversion therapy and shit for the sake of scoring a point against Johnson. It's more of the usual liberal shit. And, like, I don't think that the existence of Alba would pressure them in any way, shape or form outside of the liberal momentum trajectory that they're on.
If anything, like, so this might seem a little unintuitive, but I think the existence and failure of Alba essentially buys the SNP more time, because what is essentially shown the very loud turfy voices is, you don't matter, no one cares, no one actually gives a damn, no one really, like, we can do just fine without you, so put up with us or don't, essentially. And so it reinforces the whole broad church thing. It's like, you can bitch and you can moan, but we can do without you. They basically, they played up how important and how much leverage they had, and then when push came to shove, they were shown to have no leverage and not be important whatsoever. So the SNP can basically afford to ignore them. I think GRA is probably going to happen now, just because Alba's demonstrated there's not really a political mass appetite to oppose it.
The flip side of that as well is that because Alba's
David, sorry, did you agree with James when he made the exact same point I made? That you disagreed with me on?
No, how is it the same point that you made?
I said Alba failing as an electoral vehicle shows that there is no momentum for that kind of ideology. That it makes it politically safe to pass the reform because Alba's shown that
my point wasn't disagreeing with that. Yeah, sorry, my point wasn't disagreeing with that. My point was disagreeing with the fact that was necessary in the first place, because they would have done it anyway eventually.
Okay,
Yeah.
But like, the flip side to what James just said there is that... the flip side to what James just said there, though, is that this gives the left a potential cause to be complacent. Because, the TERFs have all extinguished themselves and are no longer relevant. We don't need to pay attention to that too hard. And this is something that the left needs to be like very, very aware of, because when the TERFs are put back in their box, they go back in the box and they receive strange funding from evangelical groups in America, and they come up with new little things that they can do. And
they kind of gestate like mold.
They need to be kept an eye on. Like, and it's very worrying, because the Scottish left is fucking great at being complacent, and we know this because the majority of them are in a liberal party. So this is the thing, right? So I brought up the NEC, which it's not just Cherry, by the way. Chapman's left as well. Voice.
Another resignation, yeah.
Do you remember when was this a year ago?
Should we?
A few months ago?
I hate to be voice interjection, but I thought it was first time around. But should we maybe mention what the hell we mean when we talk about the MEC and resignations from it? Can we give a little context? Because I know a lot of our listeners aren't as brain poisoned on Scottish politics as we are.
Okay. So, the NEC is basically just the executive committee of the SNP. It's sort of like who's in charge of the various branches of the party. Is that about like
see the thing that you kept getting really angry at about Labour and that group of cunts? It's that, but Scottish.
Yeah.
So I can't remember if it was a year ago or if it was just months ago. Time has no more meaning.
Yes.
There were NEC elections and a bunch of bigots and reactionaries won seats, and the SNP left. So people who are SNP members and who are firmly on the left that I know of and that I see on social media all had various degrees of meltdowns. There was a great wailing and gnashing of teeth. There was a lot of everything's fucked, everything's, like so on. And when we sat down to actually talk about it with some comrades who are in the SNP and who sort of knew what was going on, they've been warning for ages that the reactionaries were organizing along very, very like razor thin margins, but they were triangulating as well as they could to just get as much power in the NEC as they could. And the left contingent had just utterly failed to do so. They had failed to form any kind of faction within the party. If they had, they could have applied a lot of pressure, and that might never have happened. So with the NEC changing again, and these things starting to roll back, and people like Cherry and Chapman gone, this is now the opportunity for that factionalism that whose absence everyone got so despairing about last time to actually finally get their arses into gear and do a little bit of that good old-time inter-party muscling, pushing and shoving about. Fucking go do it. Now is the time. It's something I'm going to be harping on about the people I know. That's about as much as I can do. Lend my weight, my heft behind whatever that might be. But that's the big thing, because you can get into positions of power with just a little bit of cooperation and factional muscle.
Well,
I guess factual muscle as well.
On the note of factions and manoeuvring politically, let's talk about the Greens.
Oh, God, here we go.
So, James, why have the Greens fucked it?
Well, that's a leading question. Okay, so I have to start with a few disclaimers, as ever. I used to be on what was the equivalent of the, executive committee of the Scottish Greens back in the day. I was involved at a fairly high level. Presently, I hold no office within the Scottish Green Party. I'm just a regular old member, and everything I'm about to say is just the opinion of a member of the public who happens to be a Green. I don't have any inside insight on what is going on there. I've just got some musings, some observations, if you will. So none of this is said on behalf of the Greens. None of this holds any weight on behalf of the Greens. Take with a pinch of salt and do not judge the Greens based on it. I'm not announcing anything to anyone of any significance.
I mean, no one's going to care. You don't even own a Mondio,
But yeah, so let's talk real talk for a second here. Most important constituency seat for the Greens in Scotland, the one they put the most effort into, Patrick Harvey and Kelvin. They improved their vote share there by 0.9%.
Whoa. Earth-shattering movement. Yeah,
essentially. And they improved the regional list vote there by 0.7%. And that's pretty much it. If you then look at the Greens' regional list vote as a whole, because let's be real, the party basically runs on the regional list, that's where all their MSPs came from, it was an almighty improvement of 1.5%, which did return more MSPs. Last time around it was 6 MSPs, this time around it is 8 MSPs.
And actually it could have been more if it wasn't for the Fast Pretender Party.
Well, let's put a pin in that. I'll come to that story in a minute, right? Because I'm deeply sceptical of it for a few different reasons. 2 of those MSPs came from Edinburgh, where Lorna Slater, co-leader of the Scottish Greens, got in on the 5th of the, there's X number of list seats, and Lorna got in. She was the second Green to get in, Alison Johnson was the first, but hey, we'll come back to that. And she came in a 5th in the list, quite, well away from the bottom. In Glasgow, there was only 1. There should really have been 2, to be perfectly honest. And the real question is, well, why did Glasgow only return 1? Also, the Greens missed out on getting an MSP in the south of Scotland. A lovely woman named Laura Moody missed out on being an MSP, and that's quite unfortunate for Scotland, actually. She would have been quite good, is my kind of general opinion. So, the question to really ask is, why is it that the Greens only got 1 in Glasgow? Why did they miss out on getting Kim Long elected, essentially? And second to that, what has now happened? What's going on in the Scottish Parliament with these negotiations that are taking place between the Greens and the SNP? Because this is all... That's the only thing that's really changed. Let's be real here. In material terms, nothing has actually changed this election. Nothing structurally is any different. And if you go into it with that observation, I think it explains what we're seeing in front of us. So, David, you mentioned there's this fash party. There is a fascist party, and I'm comfortable calling them a fascist party, and if they don't like it, they can fight me on that one, who are, essentially, they've got the word green in their name. They are called the Independent Green Voice, and they should really not be registered in Scotland, is my general view. The Electoral Commission should not have registered them. Especially the Electoral Commission shouldn't have allowed them to change their logo, because their logo looks suspiciously green-like, as in Scottish Greens. And there's some argument to suggest that they basically sat there to leech off votes. And if you look very carefully, it seems as though the votes they leached off is what cost the Greens a second seat in Glasgow and a seat in the south of Scotland.
That's
right?
certainly what the numbers seem to say to me. I'm not an expert, but I looked at them, and that's, I think, the conclusion most people would draw.
I have seen the numbers,
maybe,
and I am comfortable saying probably.
Maybe we should ring Nate Silver.
I mean, Nate Silver only does predictions. He doesn't do explanation. That's famously his shtick. Anyway, here's the thing. Yes, if you look at it on the surface, that appears to be the case. No, however, the vote shares shouldn't have been close enough for that to be an actual deciding factor. And so you kind of have to interrogate, well, what about the Green strategy was so different between Edinburgh and Glasgow that led to Glasgow being in a place where a fash party siphoning votes with dirty electoral tricks could cost a second Green MSP? And I get the funny feeling there's going to be a lot of Greens who don't even want to touch that question with a barge pole.
Yeah, fair enough. That sounds like a very important fucking question.
I genuinely think that might be a question that needs to be answered and needs to be answered decisively. Because, let's be real, on paper, Glasgow is a better city for the Greens than Edinburgh. I believe the branch sizes are roughly equivalent. I think Glasgow might even be slightly larger, maybe. I don't know. I'm not up to date on branch figures. So it seems very odd that the electoral strategy has led to such a disparity between the two that this is even a factor. South of Scotland, I'm a bit more sympathetic to because it is Tory central, right? If you just look at the electoral map. So that's always going to be a harder field to plough. Yet at the same time, there is one real striking result in central Scotland. Gillian Mackay, MSP, has been elected for the Scottish Greens, first Scottish Green in central Scotland. And that was a very unexpected result. I don't think anyone, when the polls were really high up, it was like, oh, we might actually get one in central Scotland. Then when they started to tighten yet again, as they always do, it seemed less and less likely. But they pulled it out and Gillian managed to get in. So that's a pretty good result. But you have to ask, well, then what was the lesson? What was happening in central Scotland that could be applied elsewhere? Was it just a rising tide across the board? Then why didn't that apply to the south of Scotland, which seems like it would have been an easier get? And so, there needs to be a bit of interrogation about this. The net result is that there were 8 Scottish Green MSPs elected, and then something funny has happened, and you can tell it's funny because of what's not being said about it. Alison Johnson, who was elected as a Scottish Green MSP, she's now the presiding officer of the chamber, and for those who don't know, it's like being Speaker of the House in England. You give up your party affiliation, and you're just responsible for the business of a chamber, essentially. You sit at the big desk and call on people to speak and all that kind of thing, and you do the order kind of part, except it's less theatrical because it's not the British Parliament, right? Yep. She's taken that role, which means the Scottish Greens are down one MSP, essentially. And there's a lot of people online appear to be quite upset about this because a lot of people didn't vote for Alison Johnson to come in just to immediately kind of put away her responsibilities of advocacy and become, the presiding officer. So, and what's interesting is that the way it appears she got this is by cutting a deal with the SNP, which is odd. It's very odd. I wouldn't have expected to see that, and I'm not convinced that this was entirely, shall we say, agreed in advance. I wonder what kind of dealings might have taken place to cause that to happen.
Do you know what
because I'm not.
Sorry, do you know what the alleged nature of the deal in question is?
No, I am not privy to whatever dealings have gone on with the Scottish Greens and the SNP.
Oh, so it's not news or anything. People aren't mad about a specific thing. They're just saying.
No, the thing
it's just another Green voice that's now effectively silenced itself out of choice for a cushy job, and it's important to remember that no one contests the presiding officer's seat.
Well, I mean, I think it also I think it's implied that she's going to retire maybe at the end of this term, so she's in there for one term. The thing that made me raise my eyebrows, and the reason I think there might have been something weird going on here, and this is a matter of public record. No Green proposed or seconded Alison Johnson for the position, which is interesting. So not quite sure what happened there, but certainly interesting.
It doesn't seem like a move that had the backing of the wider party.
I don't know, but I did see.
You couldn't possibly speculate, but we could.
Well, I have seen a couple of press releases, and they were very pleasant, but they weren't exactly glowing, so I don't really know quite what to make of that. Anyone who wants to know more might be better served to join the Scottish Greens and ask. I'm sure if there is internal discussion about that.
Yeah, nice try.
However,
let's talk about
go to
one
meeting, harass the presiding chair, and then tear up a membership card afterwards.
Well, this is the thing. She's not Scottish Green anymore. Alison Johnson's not a Scottish Green. She's had to resign her party affiliation. She just completely walked away to do the presiding officer bit. So
that's why.
Even if you join the Scottish Greens, then you're not going to get a chance to talk to Alison Johnson, as far as I'm aware.
Well, let's talk about the other direction in which the Greens are attempting to fuck it now. So, previously, right, famously, we've said already on the podcast before that the Greens do not go into coalition with the SNP. They leverage their power by doing confidence and supply and only passing the budget if Green policies get enacted. This is how it has worked every single time the Greens have supported the SNP in a minority government.
Yeah.
What are they doing now?
I don't know, is the short version on it. I really do not know what the hell they're up to. There appears to be discussions, if you read the papers, and it's been publicly announced that the SNP and the Greens in the Parliament are in discussions about entering into some kind of working arrangement. But what that actually is anyone's guess. What that actually means is anyone's guess. It has
been hinted that there is a possibility that Green MSPs could be made ministers, which would make them part of the government.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I like, so here's the speculation. What I think is going on is I think they're taking a key, the Greens, that is, in the Parliament, they're taking a key from the New Zealand Greens, right? Who are in a cooperation agreement as part of the government of New Zealand with the Labour government, where it's not a coalition, except it kind of is if you're realistic about it, where they cooperate together, and as part of this they hold some ministerial positions. I think that's where this is kind of looking like it's going, or where they're sounding it out and feeling it through.
I did a stream with some New Zealand activists, I think one or two of which were from the Green Party, and this was just after the big election that Ardern won last year. And they were, if I remember, if memory serves, I might be getting this ass backwards, but if memory serves, they were pretty down on the idea of a coalition. They sort of their position was kind of that the Greens should let Labour own their fuck-ups and not be tied to the continuing sort of slide.
I mean that makes perfect sense because I mean let's consider like what is the potential big fuck up that the Scottish government, the pro-independence Scottish government could face in this next parliamentary term. It's a complete lack of ability to enact Scottish independence.
Well, like, there's that, and there's COVID recovery. I would probably say.
There's definitely that as well. Yeah, but I mean, like, I think longer term, like, it's the independence question.
Yeah, if I can opine what I think is going on here, I think there's a few different things in play, and I think half of this is very smart politics, and half of this is very naive. Okay. So the half of it is very smart politics is the SNP half. Right.
Yeah.
And basically, the way they kind of look at this is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. There's no real difference. We went through the results, right? Everyone can see nothing has meaningfully changed at all. The question has not been answered. And because the question has not been answered, there's no real progress is going to take place. There's nothing's going to change in a material way. But Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP, as part of their mandate, they have to be seen to be spreading that egg around Hampden. They have to be making it, stretch out, make it look like they're getting progress, make it look like they're doing something in service to independence. And so they need a change. They need there to be a change, some substantial improvement they can point to and go, look, we're doing it different. And so, from that perspective, having a single unified national voice for independence in the Scottish Chamber that commands a majority of seats in the Scottish Chamber, that's a change. That's a positive change, right?
Yeah, that could potentially be weaponized against the weird spin that people try to do about how the Greens somehow don't count as like pro-independence seats.
Well, yes.
So you're saying that we need a supermajority?
No, just a super government.
So here's the thing, though. The other perspective from the SNP is if you look at the Scottish Greens, you're like, okay, they're growing. And they're becoming more and more of a pain. What can we do to neuter them?
Oh, I know the answer to this one. It's give them enough rope to hang themselves.
Kinda. That's my intuition on it.
Okay.
Hear me out on this one.
Yeah.
My understanding of how coalitions work, my understanding of the politics that people apply to coalitions, is that coalitions only really work when the two parties are of roughly equivalent size, where people feel like there's equal partners in a relationship, right? The public does not think the Scottish Greens are an equal size to the SNP. It's been going on for a while that people said the Greens are riding on the SNP coattails a fair bit. That is a public perception. No matter how unfair it is, that is a thing. And by going into coalition with them, the SNP are kind of giving credence to that, because everyone's going to know the Greens are there in that arrangement by the kind of sufferance of the SNP. And it's kind of cheating your way into kind of ministerial kind of power, essentially, if you do pull it off. And everyone sees that for what it is. And the problem, as you've kind of articulated there, David, is that when you're in an agreement where you're working with a party, you own their fuck-ups as much as you might try and claim otherwise, but the public don't see it that way. They'll never see it that way. Every time.
And you've got a larger part of the machine that can act against you to ensure that you are the face of the fuck-up.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, the other side to it is, he who controls the purse strings controls the administration. That's just how it is, right? What there is money for constrains what you're actually able to do. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that it is that I'm right in this, and this is pure conjecture. This isn't based on, I have no inside info here, right? My pure conjecture is that this is based on them taking a long, hard look at New Zealand and thinking, we can do that. Let's say they negotiate it. What would you expect to see as signs that that's what's being negotiated towards? Well, you'd identify, well, what are the cabinet positions that the SNP would give the Greens? And that's very interesting because John Swinney has been moved away from education. Right? John Swinney has been moved away from education and he's now Deputy First Minister and COVID recovery. And someone who I barely have heard of has been moved into education and skills. That to me would be pretty accurate. That would be a necessary step to make open the possibility that you might give education to Ross Greer, say.
That would be a smart move for the SNP as well, because
it would, because if I wanted the Greens to have control of anything, it would be something as long-term and ineffective as education.
Well, it would also let the SNP distance themselves from the
catastrophic fuck-ups of the last few administrations,
Well,
Yeah.
I was thinking the big one last year specifically with the COVID.
Oh yeah, the big one there.
Which-
but, I mean, you've got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you've got all the failures with the curriculum for excellence. You've got loads of other shit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a smart move for them. James, are you still conjecturing? Because I also have conjecture.
I'm still conjecturing. My kind of, from the Greens' perspective, right, to flip it round. From the Greens' perspective, you could make the argument that, oh, well, showing that we can run a ministerial brief, improves our credibility with the public. But I think this is naive, and I don't think it works. I don't think it will actually manage. Like, here's the thing: because ultimately, I do not believe for a second that the SNP will hand over control of the purse strings to the Greens. Not happening, right? So fundamentally, what you're going to be left with is a budget that's set by the SNP that the Greens have to work alongside. And whatever way you cut it, that means the priorities are going to be set by the SNP, and the Greens are going to be left with implementation, and that is a poison chalice. And that's assuming that's the model. If they're not going to that, if they're going for some kind of formal confidence and supply agreement, why bother? Because you basically already have that without any of the downsides of confidence and supply. So it really has to be some kind of coalition, and I think what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and spin it as coalition light. They're going to try and spin it as like the New Zealand side of things. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to pan out the way it is, because fundamentally you can't. There are no shortcuts to political power, but there are many ways to kind of fuck yourself up, frankly. And I don't know. I'm not convinced this is in the interest of the Scottish Green Party. The ministerial salaries and prestige might be in the interest of individual careerists, but I don't see it being a benefit to the Greens. And so, I would broadly agree that this doesn't look very good, David. I don't know what will actually come out of it, though, and this is all pure conjecture.
I think
I'm dead
that,
wrong.
yeah, just before you go, Elijah, to your conjecture, I think that it's a very interesting turn of events for the explicitly non-TERF party to join up with the famously quite TERFy party and work alongside them. That feels to me like quite a fucking betrayal of a lot of people there. So interesting to see how that has an effect on the old numbers.
I mean, I do wonder if part of the reason for these resignations from the SNP NEC might be because of these talks, right? When you look at the figures who are actually resigning. But
Possibly,
that, again,
but
pure
I really don't
conjecture.
think that, swallow 2 green pills and cure your party of TERFery. Like, I really don't think that's going to be a working solution there.
No, but there might be
I don't think it
shifting
is.
power dynamics or something. Like a lot of this is going to be behind the scenes bullshit that we have no idea about. So
I think
The SNP doing behind the scenes bullshit? Never.
Like, I think
just general political stuff. Like, it's counterfactuals at some point. Like, we haven't seen things happen yet, so we're all just kind of what hasn't happened and what could happen. Which
Totally. I'm just more riffing on the fact that you never know what's happening inside the SNP because it's such a fucking well-oiled machine.
It is.
Usually.
It's a black box. And fundamentally, I guess it kind of comes down to this, right? Let's say they pull this off and they make this working. Does this give people reasons to vote Scottish Green as opposed to vote SNP?
That's where my
arguably it takes the wind out of the sails of both votes SNP.
That's where my conjecture was going to come in. I was going to talk about perception, right? Because James mentioned public perception, and I think there is a line of thought. Now, I don't know how accurate this is, and I think, James, your assessment does largely ring true. Like, it feels true. It feels likely. But to just have a look at a different sort of train of thought for a second, my first thought on hearing this was, in the public perception, if you have an official coalition and the general sort of approval ratings of the government continue to be as high as they are, I think that might very well affect the numbers of people who just vote SNP twice. It might kind of crystallize the idea that you do one vote for one party, the second vote for the other party in this kind of shape, right? Like, it takes form a little bit. It's a big brain play if
it works.
Yeah, it takes form. You'll say, oh, we had a coalition government. I liked it. I want that again. So SNP Greens, because now you have like a daily sort of like public example of that, right? You have this sort of running commentary of what that actually looks like. It becomes a little more manifest than just an abstract mathematical electoral calculus idea. It becomes something that you can sort of see. And I think that might have an effect on public perception. I do, like we know how all these power dynamics in coalitions work. But I think a lot of people are going to be either happy or unhappy with the government. And if it's a coalition government, that could possibly just crystallize how they approach a 2-vote system. That's my conjecture. I think that might be on the minds of some people in the Greens.
Maybe,
possibly.
but I don't know. I guess you have to ask a fundamental question, right? Which is, do you think the next 5 years are going to be good ones or bad ones, right?
Bad
do you
ones.
Think yeah, see, this is the thing. I think coming out of COVID and all the massive structural changes that are going to come as a result of this resolving, I don't think this is going to be a particularly good time for the Scottish Government. I really don't. And as a consequence to that, I think they're in this position because they're going, we need something to show that's different. We need to give an illusion of progress because there's not going to be any actual progress or improvement. In fact, there's going to be a decline in real conditions.
Have you considered that maybe if we really need something big and different and new, a slightly sad press conference held outside of a high court about why the Tories still said no and the judges upheld it? Yeah. Is that fundamental enough a change? Because that's probably the only fundamental change we're going to get is another line under no.
I still think that's a little pessimistic, and
I don't, because why would you trust courts? Why would you trust the law? Why would you trust liberals?
It's not that. No, it can't be done through the courts until something happens. All the actual cases on this topic have come back with the same result, which is we can't rule on something hypothetical. Yes. I think people, it's hard not to have movement. It gets really tricky. You start to imagine a whole bunch of things that could happen or that could not happen here and there. And I'm just very careful about removing my sort of emotions from what we do and don't know. Right?
See, I get that. I think that feeds
I think it's unwarranted pessimism.
I don't know. I mean, I think this right. Yeah, this feeds into the larger kind of like the emotional landscape of Scottish politics. Is one group is happy, well, maybe not happy with status quo, but wants status quo of that nature specifically, and then the other fucking part of it is like right raring to go and really choking for it. But every day is another day on the after we didn't get that, and every day that hasn't happened yet is another day of failure for the movement. And movements can only live with failure for so long before people start to get shitty about it. And this is why people have been saying the SNP can only survive for so long, because eventually, Alba's been like one indication of like this thing could happen. Might not happen successfully this time, but we don't know what the next fault line might be. We don't know what the fault line's going to be in 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Can I also I'm sorry, I want to be really clear on this actually, Elijah. I'm not making my judgment on the next 5 years not going well just on emotion and gut feels, right? Mm-hmm. Look at our export change as a result of Brexit.
Oh yeah, no.
Look at what's happening with the fact that tenancy evictions, the pause in evictions of tenants has ended now in Scotland. You put these structural factors in play, I think you're going to see an increase in discontent in the material arrangements over the next 5 years. No. And so from the SNP's perspective, having something to both guard against that and a potential avenue to offload that, to get shared ownership of that, is advantageous to them.
Yes.
I think the SNP are being quite smart here. I don't actually really see... I don't buy the whole this is going to change people's arithmetic when it comes to first vote, second vote. I really don't get that.
Okay, hang on. 2 different things going on at the same time. The pessimism that I think is a bit unwarranted is about the various legalistic aspects about holding a referendum.
Right, okay.
Yeah. In terms of material consequences to Scotland and to people's livelihoods, it's going to get worse. It's been getting worse. It's going to get a whole lot worse because of a bunch of reasons. Things getting worse has in the past been good for the SNP because they're offering like a drastic option out. And then the other question is, if that option doesn't materialize longer and longer and further, then what is that tension going to come to? And it could come to a few things. I don't want to speculate too wildly because some of the potential outcomes are a bit unpleasant.
You're here
various
forever
shapes
meme.
and forms. I'm just gonna I'm gonna shut up now.
Like I genuinely don't think it looks particularly great, and like I don't know. I come around again to like let's start for a second. You are both votes SNP, right?
Well, me.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, no, just you. The
Okay.
hypothetical
Yes.
the person on the screen. You are both votes SNP. You gave both votes to the SNP this time. Great. Mm-hmm. The SNP got a better result than last time. Great. That, on the surface, that seems to have done
vindicates
better.
your strategy.
So,
sure, why not?
Which vindicates your strategy. The SNP have then gone into some kind of, well, it looks like a coalition, I guess, to you, because you don't really care what it's called. You care how it appears with the Scottish Greens. Okay. Things are mostly like you're happy enough with them, even though things are getting worse. Let's say the SNP pull that trick out, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you change your voting strategy now?
Yeah, like it worked for you once. Yeah, sure. You'd be like, everyone else will vote for them. I am maybe overestimating the porousness of the border between of the membrane between an SNP voter and a Greens voter.
This is the thing. Like when I talked in the last episode, it wasn't on this. I talked on an episode of Com Radio where we discussed Scottish politics, and I talked about the difference between a Green and the SNP voter, and I took lengths to explain that actually it's not quite as hard a divide. But here's the problem: where there is fuzziness between those two voting groups, you're already seeing it represented in the Greens. The ones which are left, I don't think are that fuzzy at all, and I don't think they're going to be persuaded. I think that might actually well be one of the things that the Greens are thinking, which is that, if we do a term showing this, then it will kill dead any resistance from SNP members to voting for us. But I think that misjudges why people vote SNP rather than Green.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that the SNP know how to do hard messaging to their voter base, and like they will happily push both votes SNP when it comes to the next election, to save them from having to, hand over more of the power of government to the Greens.
Like, so, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to get a party actively saying vote for another party, right? Like that's not going to happen. The both votes
Alex
SNP...
Salmon wants a word.
Okay, actual parties.
Real parties,
The both votes SNP thing becomes obnoxious when it's like a heightened focus of a campaign. I don't think anyone's really expecting the SNP to come out and say, okay, yeah, vote for the Greens in the list. Like that's never going to happen. And that would be a silly thing to expect of a party to come out and say vote for someone else. So what you really want is just for them to kind of dial the rhetoric back in a little bit.
Here's the thing. I don't think the SNP will under any circumstances. And then you're left with what is going to be electoral kryptonite, which is the Greens making the argument that, hey, listen, come vote for us, right? Because look, we work closely with the SNP. We're good for the SNP. I think that will put off a lot of voters who vote for the Greens because they're not SNP. Like David, for example. Hi, David.
Yep, I am sorely regretting the one vote that I did on the list. I don't like this at all.
I am not regretting my votes for the Scottish Greens because it got Gillian Mackay, and Gillian's genuinely great, and I think she'll do good in the chamber. I am concerned about the Greens' long-term prospect as a viable political operation, depending on what deal they get with the SNP. And this is all conjecture at this point, but I don't actually see any winning moves here.
I mean, it's important to say that...
wrong.
Yeah, it's important to say that it is entirely possible that this will actually go fucking nowhere, and like the Greens will ask for too much, or the SNP will demand a certain thing, and it'll all fall apart, and we could end up in a normal confidence in supply, which would be great. It's almost as if like
it might also be really good.
Well, the outcome that I said before the election, the best possible outcome which could happen, which is the one that we got, was that the SNP didn't get a majority, and the Greens were the only people that were actually able to, give them the support needed for their budgets. Like, if we end up in that position again, fine, all's well.
Yeah,
I'm going to be distrustful, but all's well.
I guess, like, here's the thing. If the Scottish Greens and the SNP go into a room and they come out and they say, Patrick Harvey is going to be in charge of the budget, essentially, then I'll sit up and pay attention.
Yeah.
Okay? Then I'll be like, okay, this could actually be for real. This is in uncharted territory. I do not believe that will happen.
No.
I really just do not believe it will happen.
No.
I think you'll get education and environment going to the Scottish Greens will probably be the offer, essentially. And I would not be surprised. Maybe 3 seats, maybe 3 positions at most, right?
Please let them have transport. Please let them have fucking transport. I want that transport plan enacted so badly.
Well, again, even if they do, I don't think they get the money to do it, is the short version.
No, they wouldn't.
But
that's because the SNP wouldn't really do a budget that would give them that kind of fucking capability in the first place, never mind the right money to the right departments.
Like, I don't know. I could sort of see, education and skills going to Ross Greer. I could see maybe if the SNP decide they're going to be really weird about it, they decide to give, like, finance and the economy to Patrick Harvey, but I'm really doubting it'll amount to much. And then if they have to find one for Lorna Slater, I don't know what that would actually be. I'll tell you, it'll be very funny if we end up with just 2 of them, and it's Patrick and Ross, because that's going to be interesting to see how that squares.
Yeah.
But I don't know, seriously, the Shirley Ann Somerville being moved into education and skills and John Swinney being moved off of it and into a Deputy First Minister position feels like preparing the ground just in case. So that's where my intuition is at right now. But it's just, I don't know, nothing has changed, and yet they're attempting to manufacture, the SNP are attempting to manufacture some kind of meaningful change here, and I don't think its manufacture actually improves anything in Scotland, and I'm not sure it does the Greens any favours. I am very open to being proven dead wrong about this.
Please. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting times, if nothing else. This is more I've had to think creatively about Scottish politics in a while.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have something vaguely new happening, but at the same time, the potential consequences are fucking awful and I don't like them.
All right. Are we moving on the list? Should we do a pulse check on Jamie?
Oh, I'm just sat here like someone booked a dog on the Daily Politics, man. I'm grand. Just carry on.
I just noticed it's been like half an hour and I hadn't heard your voice. I'm like...
I mean, in fairness, if somebody booked a dog on the Daily Politics, it would be a vast fucking improvement, so...
Pretty much.
I'm just happy to be involved.
All right. Well, what's next on the list, if anything?
I think
because we've
largely covered everything. But there's one issue we haven't really spoken too much about, and it's the one we're not allowed to talk about.
The one question.
Oh,
the
right.
One question.
Okay.
Do we want to kick the door open slightly?
A little bit.
We will peek through the keyhole of the door.
No Jack Nicholson shit. Yeah. Just
okay. Like, if you pull an axe out, Elijah, we're gonna Jamie will wrestle you to the floor. That's what he's here for.
Oh yeah. So like I said, it's been some time since the referendum, and nothing has changed.
7 years. 7 years, and nothing has changed.
7 years, and every single day since has been the fucking same. You think COVID's been fucking difficult? Really? You think a year of lockdown was fucking hard? Try being in Scotland for the last 7 fucking years. Jesus Christ. So nothing's happened. It's just everything stagnates. The cycle goes continually round with the question of independence will be brought up by someone who doesn't want independence, and then the SNP will have to offer some retort of, well, of course independence would be a good thing, and then that fuels the next person who doesn't want independence to say, actually, I think you'll find it wouldn't be, and then the Greens will maybe chime in with, well, actually, it could be quite good, and then someone says, shut the fuck up, that's the Green Party, no one cares what they say, and then the SNP say, but they're right, independence is good, and the cycle just fucking continues on and on. Because the media will not let it fucking die.
I love it. Scotland is basically the Dark Souls timeline of people continuing to link the fire and just allow things to materially decline time and time again.
I've never finished a single Dark Souls game, so that reference is completely lost on me.
Well, you say that,
I'm
but
sure
all that
some of
means
our
is
audience are nerds enough.
yeah, all that really means is that you're effectively living the experience, though, if it's never completed to any sort of end result that's different from the start.
No, I just get annoyed with something that wants me to commit as much time to it as I had when I was 9 years old. You know, like just let me play a fucking game
as well.
You know,
right?
Yeah.
Actually,
Like,
yeah, like nothing's really happening here. So the only thing we've got to ask really is what is going to happen potentially. So the potential things that can happen are they all stem off from the same point, which is the SNP say, or even the Scottish Government, including the Greens say, whatever one it is, we want a referendum on this point. And they pass a thing saying this is when we will have a referendum. And then an argument breaks out between Holyrood and Westminster about whether or not they're allowed to do that. There's already a set argument of what that's going to be over. Everyone kind of has a rough idea of like how that's going to, play out in the initial stages of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
yeah.
And eventually it will probably be referred onto the courts. Now, there's been some things said from Westminster that this wouldn't happen and they wouldn't refer it to the courts, but I think that's just a big brain way of saying, well, we wouldn't need to because we're actually going to say no and that's what matters. So, I don't really know how that's all going to fucking play out. Then it's basically down to the courts to decide, is that going to be allowable, whatever that is? And again, as you said, Elijah, they won't comment on what that is because they don't deal in hypotheticals. Yeah.
Just to clarify for our non-Scottish listeners, the issue in question is whether Holyrood would be legally competent, I guess is the term, to hold a valid independence referendum on their own terms. That's the question there. Yeah. Without needing consent from
Yeah, if that's ruled as yes, they can, then a referendum can be held.
Yeah. So before that gets to the court stage, right? So before that gets to the court stage, there's a whole bunch of political optics bullshit that we have to go through, right? You have to do the consensus building. You have to have all this nonsense about a mandate, which Alex Salmond has fucking badly harmed with his supermajority bullshit. By the way, cheers, Alex. Fucking
the one good thing he's ever done.
Shut up.
I actually, just as a complete aside, that might actually be a contributing factor to the change in the SNP Green situation this time around, because the SNP are like, oh shit, Alex has been saying all this stuff about we need a supermajority.
Yeah, I said that.
How do we manufacture something that could be mistaken for supermajority?
It could help to present a mandate, right? It could boost a mandate, because one of the unionist things that they like to do is they like to cherry pick like different sort of electoral numbers. But the SNP only have so and so seats, which means there is no mandate. So there's the mandate stuff. There's the consensus building, and then there's a long game of political chicken.
Yep.
Right.
I don't think there is. Right, hang on. Run that one by me. What is the political chicken here?
The political chicken
the political
is...
chicken... There you go.
Okay. Did you have a funny answer?
I didn't. No, I had a serious one.
I think the political chicken is going to be like a series of sort of back and forth. We'll hold one. No, you won't. We will. No, you will, Nick. We will. Over the course of maybe a year. I don't know. Something like that.
I don't think that's going to happen at all.
No,
I really don't. No,
the political chicken is entirely on the part of the SNP to be the ones that fire this, knowing that it could backfire on them. The SNP are the ones with everything to gain and everything to lose here. The Tories lose nothing. Like if they win it, like it's even if the Tories don't get to win that part of it, like it's a case of, well, it goes to the courts then, and we see what happens there, and then things may escalate much further after that, depending on. But like, this is all for the SNP to actually take and seize the initiative of. And if they fuck up the timing, that's going to be on them. Like, if they don't do this in the right way, it's not going to look good.
Chicken implies two people driving at each other and one veers at the last minute sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So from the conservative side,
perspective, they're just a brick wall sitting there going, no.
Yeah, like. Theoretically,
if you play chicken with a brick wall, you lose. I don't know any other way to put it.
Theoretically, from the Tory side, it would be a unwillingness to incite domestic tensions, but that's being overly generous.
They don't care.
Yes.
They've very much shown that they don't care, right? So it comes round to the SNP pull some rhetorical flourish to make it look like there's a mandate for a new referendum. How they do that remains to be seen, right? They then go, we want an independence referendum. Westminster says no. The SNP Scottish government say, well, we're going to have one. And then the Westminster government says, no, you can't do that. At which point the SNP then goes to the courts and it's into law shagging.
Yeah.
I don't see any other path.
Well, there's always the
then-
wildcat referendum option, but that has a whole bunch of other issues.
But
It
no,
does.
they're not going to do
That
that.
we're not going to get.
The only way they will do
Yeah.
way they'll do something like that is if they'll lose the legal argument first.
Yeah.
The chief argument against the SNP doing that is that they are liberal law shaggers at their core. You'll have groups within the SNP saying, no, do that. You should do that. We need to do that. Look at Catalonia, just do it. But, like...
I think I've said this before. That was one of the issues, right? Like plan A or plan B, and people say, "Oh, we have to have a plan B." And I'm saying you can't have a plan B until you've tried plan A. It's the nature of the plan B you're discussing is contingent on the other options having failed, right? Like it's a backup plan. You don't go with a backup plan first.
Yeah, the only wrinkle potentially in any of this is the fact that Unite, all the candidates for leadership of Unite are apparently in favour of IndyRef 2. So that could create some interesting wrinkles in terms of how Labour has to tie itself in knots. But that's all.
Oh no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. If like any one of those people win that, almost like they're going to disaffiliate from Labour anyway. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, but like, so that's the only interesting thing I see in this. Otherwise, it really just does go to law shagging. And I'll be honest, I don't know what the result of that is. I think that my cynical side thinks that it would be no. But
the courts can surprise you. You know,
I know they're talking about like at the literally, and this is not a joke, dusting off the Act of Union, the Declaration of Arbroath, and all this old shit, and going through it to see if there are grounds.
Well, that's where you have to go.
I've never heard anyone invoke the Declaration of Arbroath and not witness them tug themselves off underneath the kilt they're inexplicably wearing in the Weatherspoons. I hate that fucking document. I don't even know what it's about. I just know I don't fucking like it because of the people who do.
I'm going to show up at the next pod meetup wearing one of those fucking t-shirts with the Declaration printed on the back. I have a spare one for David, just for him.
Oh, no, I'll be wearing my Passock one.
Like, to understand the Declaration of Arbroath, just for our listeners, and also to school David a bit, because you should fucking know this, right? It's a letter that was written in 1320 at Arbroath, written by Scottish barons and addressed to Pope John the 22nd. And it constituted King Robert I's response to his excommunication for disobeying the Pope's demand in 1317 for a truce in the First War of Scottish Independence. The letter asserted the antiquity of the independence of the Kingdom of Scotland, denouncing English attempts to subjugate it. Right,
and it is for this reason, alone, that I am sovereign as a citizen.
Ooh, I got a stiffy. Ooh.
Yeah, the two different approaches to this, just in a nutshell. Like the Scotland forever, like having a stiffy under his kilt Elijah versus the I want to fucking tear up the state and become a one-man sovereign with fringes on my flag, David. That's pretty much a polarization of Scottish
I'm going to become the Jacobite, not the.
I am going to become the Jacobite. Oh fuck! Oh
yeah, I thought that was funny.
Like just this whole thing where it's going to be digging up fucking 700-year-old fucking documents. Like,
that's fucking great
to confront a legal argument of the current and present day.
I'm sorry, I love this shit.
I get that. I get why, and it is funny, right? But at the same time, this is like the absolute core of what liberalism is. These things are not necessarily relevant to the material conditions of today. However, we're going to make them so by analysing them and then saying so.
I mean, really, it's going to, like, most of the focus is going to be on the Act of Union of Crowns, right? And it's going to be about the fact that Scotland... Well, Scotland entered into an agreement as an equal, and therefore Scotland can withdraw from that agreement as an equal sort of thing. Just total, like, unrelated to material conditions, because, like you say,
it's been updated, right?
Well, yeah, because if you were going to do material
acts each time, there's a change in the sort of,
the fundamental the fundamental problem you come to is this, right? Okay, let's just play this out a little bit. Let's look a little bit further into the keyhole on this one. Let's say the courts come back and they stun us all by going, go on then. Have your referendum, go for it, right? Do we honestly, seriously think the Conservative government are just going to go, yeah, all right then? Well, this Conservative government.
That's a whole other bridge to cross, and then you have to start thinking about tanks.
This depends how many judges the Daily Mail gets killed, really.
Well,
yeah. I've got people in Belfast on the phone. Like we can set up the barges and everything.
Let's not have the Scottish Republican Army become a thing, right? Can we dodge that, please? But
I don't know. Can we? It's not up to me.
This is the problem, though. If the courts say aye, and the Westminster government does anything other than go, well, I guess we respect the rule of law. And let's be real, this Westminster government doesn't have a track record in that, right? If they do anything other than say, well, we respect the rule of law, go ahead and have your referendum, then it goes into real nightmare scenario kind of stuff. Because there's no good way that unfolds. None. Right?
I will actually posit let's call this a twistedly optimistic view here.
All right, okay.
If it's denied or whatever, or, whatever happens and it ends up being a no, it's not happening, nothing will happen, because the Scottish people are, at their core, in some way, British, in that they are supine, snivelling shitheads who will just accept the status quo if it is forced upon them, even lightly. Yes, sorry, the Scottish are no better than the English in this regard. Not at all. Like, they will just fucking do it, and they will defer to their betters. It may take a bit of time for some people, but the majority will just go, fine.
Do you think the nightmare scenario is they go, yeah, you can have your referendum, and then the referendum returns exactly the same fucking result?
No, that is the funniest. That is the funniest possible fucking... In fact, no, that's not even the funniest. The funniest would be 52-48. That would be the perfect, most wonderful fucking result possible.
We're a doomed fucking nation.
We are. The entire island is doomed, and there is no way out of it that doesn't involve some sort of, movement coming from the left to actually start seizing things. Outside of that, nothing good will probably happen.
I think
there is no mechanism for which that can happen in Scotland.
This is all getting very sad. This is all.
It's not sad.
No. There was
realistic.
Look. There was.
Okay. Hang on.
Close the door.
I'm covering the keyhole again. We're done. We can't keep talking about this. This listener is why we don't talk about the question.
But good things. Thinking of me, little Armalite.
Good things could happen, but so also could bad things. And at the moment, the Liberals are in their safest position because no things are happening, and that's how they like it.
In conclusion,
if he gets to have a go after you close the door, then so do I.
Oh God!
I
need you, Jamie. I think I need you to step in, mate. I think it's getting too heated.
Yeah, are we done?
Fine. Yeah. I'll go do my own chat with blackjack and saltires.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Elijah? Why don't you host the stream and then have us on the stream on your Twitch channel, which you can now plug?
Yeah, I was meant to have these guys on. Was it last week? I don't even remember. Everything's been so fucking hectic. Yeah, it would have been last week. Hopefully we'll do one again soon. If you'd like to keep an eye out on my channel for basically whenever I can be arsed, you can find it at twitch.tv/Klezmer Rouge. It's the same as my Twitter handle, at Klezmer Rouge. I'm I got like mildly excited, and then I had to stop immediately, and that's just like taking all the oomph out of my muscles. It's like you've like had like a half orgasm, you know, like not the full one, and then you're just like dead and can't do anything.
Le petit bop.
Oh dear! Right, can we stop this so I can go like have an ice bath or something, because I am literally melting here.
Yeah,
this is too warm.
Sweating my tits off. So join us on Elijah's stream whenever that happens. We'll keep you posted. You can follow us at PraxisCast, and you can contribute to this wonderful podcast via the Patreon, which is patreon.com/PraxisCast. And if just the sheer weight of just giving us some money for the hell of it wasn't enough for you, we will be doing bonus content from this month. 1 episode a month to start with. We may up this. We will have a guest on this one. I will say closer to the time who it's going to be. And we will be talking some pretty fun stuff that has came from the disease mind of Rob. So look forward to that. You can get that one if you subscribe to the Patreon. Any amount that you subscribe will get that.
Awesome. Right.
You've sold out, lads.
We have.
No, it's good. I'm excited to see.
There's no ethical podcasting under capitalism.
No, there isn't. Just Sonic T-shirts and shite. I'm actually genuinely excited to see where things are going to go. So thanks for having me on.
Of course,
it's always a pleasure.
Anytime, bud.
It's been good, man.
We'll bring you back in another 5 years when there's another reason to have a ScotPol episode.
Yeah, right. Until then, until the next development, we'll catch you all later.
Okay, Eli, do you want to play us out?
Sure, why not? Here, it's a little Scottish tune called The Bonnie Lass of Fivey. I've kind of bluegrassed it up. If you like what you hear and would like something similar for any of your contents, do please give me a shout. I'm happy to do commissions and non-copyrighted works. Enjoy! Once was a troop of Irish Dragoons came marching down through Fivey. The captain's fallen in love with a very bonny quine, and the name that she had was Pretty Peggy. Oh, come running down your stairs, Pretty Peggy, my dear. Running down your stairs, Pretty Peggy, oh. Come running down your stairs and tie back your yellow hair. Back a last farewell to your daddy, oh. For it's bra, captain's lady for to be. It's bra to be captain's lady, oh. Brought her in a run, died to follow with the camp, and to much from your captain he's ready, oh. Oh, the colonel he cried, boys, mind, boys, mind. The captain, he cried, tarry, oh. Tarry for a while, for another day or twa, just to see if this bonny lass will marry, oh. Oh, and syne here we come up the old Meldrum town, our captain we had for to carry on. Syne here we come up to Bonnie Aberdeen, oh, our captain we had for to bury on. For there's bonny lass in the how of the list. There's mony bonny dame in the Geary-o. There's mony bonny Jean in the tune o' Aberdeen, but the clear of them all bides in 5-o. Was a troop of Irish dragoons marching down through Fire. The captain's fallen in love with another bonny quire, and the name that she had was Pretty Peggy. Oh.